I'm unhappy with the choices the Republican and Democratic parties offer us, but I also don't want to split the vote and become a spoiler.
Well, the Justice Party will run candidates at local, state, and national levels. So there are some races where the so-called spoiler effect won't be an issue. For instance, my 2 successful races for mayor of Salt Lake City were nonpartisan. We didn't run as nominees of parties, which is how I wish every race could be. But third-party candidates have indeed made real, very negative differences by running in contested states. For instance, James Polk. He was a slave owner, he was a racist, he was an advocate of nationwide slavery, he lied our country into the vicious Mexican-American War to steal land away from Mexico so that they could be slave territories or states, to ensure that Congress would never be able to make slavery illegal. He was a vile man, total racist, and the worst choice for president. But he won his election, and it was a very close election. He only won that election because there was a third-party abolitionist candidate who split the vote in New York. Also, more recently, Ralph Nader's a great friend of mine. I admire him as much as anybody in terms of all of his great advocacy during most of his adult life on behalf of consumers and other ordinary people, making sure that workplaces are safe, that the products we purchase are safe. But when he ran in 2000, most analysts would say that he likely made the difference by continuing to run in Florida, allowing George W. Bush to beat Al Gore. And even more recently, Jill Stein's run as a Green Party candidate probably deprived Hillary Clinton of victory against Donald Trump. So we will never be a spoiler in a race where there's a candidate of the sort like Trump or George W. Bush. We would bow out of those races. We'd certainly never run as a third party in a battleground state, one which is close enough not to call. We're not going to run in those states simply like some other parties do so they can get matching federal funds for their next election. We want to see a better country. We want to see greater social, economic, and environmental justice. That is our main focus. So to accomplish that, if it means that we pull out of races in these battleground states, that's so much the better. And we're likely even to support, to endorse a candidate from another party if their positions align with the principles of the Justice Party for greater social, economic, and environmental justice.
Why should we support another party that maybe better reflects our views if we're already pretty certain that they're not going to win?
Great question, but your assumption is incorrect. The majority of people in the United States want to see another major party. If they would stand behind their desire, we could all contribute to achieving a far better nation. As long as so many people remain timid, assuming that lock on power by the two major parties is unbreakable, corrupting money will always have its way, and the duopolist Democratic and Republican parties will continue to deprive our nation of what the majority of people really want. If we'll join together and say, let's take this in a different direction, the Justice Party can become the new majority party. And even if it doesn't, we've seen third-party and independent candidates make a tremendous difference just in running and raising issues that aren't being addressed by either of the two major parties. Teddy Roosevelt showed this beautifully when he ran as a third-party candidate with the Progressive Party. He lost the race, but he actually won that election because the major social progress platforms that he was advocating, for instance, an 8-hour workday, Social Security, Women's suffrage, these were all things that Teddy Roosevelt was advocating for as a third-party candidate, and they all became the law in this country, and it's because by his advocacy, they became so popular among the populace that elected officials couldn't resist the trend anymore for these major areas of social progress. So a third party can make a tremendous difference. It's high time we break the systemic lock on power that corrupting money has created in our politics.
What is it that the two major parties are not providing that you say most people want?
Well, there are so many things the majority of people in the United States have wanted for many years, but have been denied by the Republican and Democratic parties, who work in collusion with one another. For instance, in the area of universal health care, according to many surveys, most people in the United States want universal health care, but the two parties won't even put it on the table for consideration. In one major poll, 63% of adult respondents said the government has the responsibility to provide health care for all. We deserve what the people in the rest of the industrialized world have: essential health care for all. Likewise, most people, including the majority of people describing themselves as conservatives, liberals, or moderates, want much lower incarceration rates, with productive alternatives to incarceration whenever possible. One major poll reflected that 71% of people in the United States agree that incarceration for long periods is counterproductive to public safety due to the absence of effective rehabilitation programs in prison. Another survey reflected that 85% of respondents support making rehabilitation the goal of the criminal justice system rather than punishment. Also, most people believe that the criminal justice system discriminates against people of color and economically disadvantaged people. Yet our nation has by far the greatest incarceration rate in the world, with more people in jail and prison for drug-related offenses than all of the people incarcerated throughout all of Western Europe for all crimes combined. It is perverse and it is racist, and it needs to change, but it's doubtful it's ever going to change unless we push outside this two-party duopolist political system. Only 22% of respondents ages 18 to 29 believe that higher education in the United States is affordable. The majority of people want affordable higher education with an end to crushing student debt. In fact, several polls have shown that a majority of respondents support free college tuition at public universities, colleges, and trade schools. Yet the two parties, the two duopolist parties, have locked in an incredibly expensive education system and an unconscionable student debt system, unlike anything found in the rest of the industrialized world, and certainly unlike anything that existed when I was a college student. Our young people deserve affordable education, and all who carry student debt deserve a solution that serves the interests of students and the rest of the public, rather than only the interests of universities, colleges, and banks. A majority of people want an end to the wasteful so-called war on drugs. In fact, the majority of people in the United States favor decriminalizing drugs. However, our foolish, self-destructive, cruel approach to substance abuse has been a product of collusion between the two major parties. Substance abuse should be handled as a public health and education challenge, not as another reason to put more and more people, disproportionately Black and Latino, behind bars. Most people, 2 out of 3 in the United States for years, have wanted more effective action by the government to protect our climate and the Earth's inhabitants, not just toothless voluntary agreements and kicking the can down the road for others to deal with the worsening climate crisis. Yet both parties, the major parties, have focused instead not on providing courageous leadership, but rather on cynical political calculations regarding the consequences to them and their parties of doing what is required to protect the climate and the Earth's inhabitants. They have consistently exhibited disgraceful timidity in the face of an existential catastrophe. Through their ineffectiveness, both major parties have essentially been making war against later generations and those who are least capable of surviving the horrendous impacts of climate chaos. We all, including those not yet born, deserve far better from our political parties and leaders. Most people from both major parties want an end to the corrupt campaign and finance systems. For instance, 88% of people in the United States say political TV ads should be required to disclose who paid for the ad. Yet the duopolist parties, the Republican and Democratic parties, continue to benefit from it all, feeding from the same trough of corrupting money, doing the will of wealthy corporations and individuals as they undermine the public interest. This oligarchy must come to an end. The list goes on and on of what the people of the United States want, and how the duopolist Democratic and Republican parties have refused to provide it. If we want changes that will serve the interests of the people, we can't continue doing the same thing and expect a different result. We must reject the two major parties that have acted against the public interest for so many years. Exercising your choice to support the Justice Party will help break their lock on political power in our country.
I want to hedge my bets to make sure that Donald Trump or someone else like him doesn't win again. So I kind of feel the need to maybe join the Democratic or Republican Party.
I understand that. So does the Justice Party, many founding members of which have retained their membership in one of the previously existing parties. Unlike other political parties, we do not require that you resign your membership in another political party. We're just simply asking that you support the efforts of the Justice Party, both in terms of us building an electoral party, but also, and again, perhaps most importantly, supporting us in bringing people together, regardless of what party they're in or whether they're even a member of a party, to work at the grassroots level together to push our elected officials for the kinds of change that the majority of people in this country want.
Tell me more about the movement building part of the Justice Party. I thought you guys were more of a political party just running campaigns.
The Justice Party will run candidates in local, state, and national races and build state-affiliated parties. In that regard, we function a lot like other political parties. But perhaps more importantly, the Justice Party focuses on engaging people, including members of other parties or of no party, to help bring about positive changes to further social, economic, and environmental justice. We are building teams of people who will do more than engage in mouse-click activism, so they will learn more about important issues, organize, and mobilize to push for change from the grassroots level. It's this kind of movement building, not just electing the right people to office, that has been behind most major social progress in our country, including the slave abolition, women's suffrage, civil rights, and labor movements. We must all get back to organizing and pushing together relentlessly from the grassroots level. The Justice Party is unique among parties in focusing on powerful, organized, tenacious, effective action by ordinary people who demand change, including an end to the corrupting influence of money on our campaigns and political system.
Does it cost anything to be a member of the Justice Party? And how do I join?
Well, the Justice Party does not require any payment to be a member. Simply go to our website, www.justiceparty.us, and fill out the short form indicating you want to be a member. We make clear that we do not require anyone to resign from or repudiate any other party. We just seek your support for our grassroots organizing efforts to push for the changes most people in the United States want and to build the party to become a majority party that will honor our democracy and fight for the public interest, greater social, economic, and environmental justice.